Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
Coach K opened up the press conference by saying, how excited they are to be there, and also that, they're only allowed to do a trip like this once every 4 years. Anyway, then I decided I would ask the first question of the press conference.
Wait. So you asked the first question.
Me.
You.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Hey, Cubby.
Skippy, how are you?
I'm great. It's no phone call today. We're live and in person in my basement as usual, which we do once in a while.
Clearly, the Skip and Josh podcast has a larger budget than we thought because I made a road trip specifically to see the third of 3 Duke games.
It's really unbelievable what you did, actually. Like, this whole week for you, I could just imagine it's like some kind of crazy whirlwind. You went to the press conference earlier in the week.
Monday.
You asked questions, Coach K, answered your questions. Then you went to the game on Wednesday, the game on Friday.
Bumped into Jay Billis at the hotel.
Exactly. You went in the locker room after the games on Wednesday and Friday against Ryerson and U of T. Asked the players all kinds of questions. You got footage. Like, I don't even know what we're going to do with all the sound bites that you got and all the pictures. You sent me a Google Drive full of pictures, a million pictures. I don't know what to do with them. And then all of a sudden, Friday, you start asking me questions like, is there a seat available next to you at the game on Sunday in Montreal? And I was like, are you thinking of coming to the game? And then you were like, yes, I am. And like, I told you, like, I don't think I could have drove that distance, like, for the basketball game. Like, I would have drove that distance to see Duke play. But like, knowing that you saw him already twice, and then next thing you know, you're at my house.
Yeah, well, I wanted to see all 3 games. I wanted to see a game in Montreal, my hometown. And actually, I would have liked to have sat with you and your son at the game today. That would have been more fun than the game itself. Or, we had other friends.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Schnerbs, was at the game today.
And Rob, who's been on our show before.
And Rob. And so I wanted to sit with at least one of you guys because I would have enjoyed the game more because those are the guys, you're the guys who I grew up watching college basketball with.
Right.
So while it was really fun being on the floor, sitting right behind the player bench.
I mean, you were literally like 1 row behind the scorer.
Yes,
today.
it was.
Yeah.
Well, for all 3 games.
Yeah.
And while that was a lot of fun, it's more fun if I had someone to share it with.
Yeah.
So anyway, unfortunately, the good news is the game was sold out. That's a good thing. The bad news is there were no empty seats next to you or Rob or Neil, so I had to sit in my regular seat.
It was completely sold out today. There wasn't any empty seats that I could see. But like the old saying goes, what's the song? More money, more problems. You know, like, oh, you had a press pass and you got to sit 1 row behind the scorer's table. I wish I could have sat in the stands with you guys, right? Well...
So it's a really interesting vantage point because not only do you get to see everything up close, but you could hear Coach K like arguing with the refs during the game.
Yeah.
And you would think in these nothing games he wouldn't care so much, but he actually does. And he was challenging them on calls that he thought were incorrect or whatever, and you can hear it. And I guess he was trying to get into mid-season form as well.
Exactly. Like, I always look at that. When you told me that that's how he was in the games against Ryerson and Toronto, I was like, it's that thing where you say, like, you play how you practice, right? So he's always preaching to the players, you got to practice hard because you got to do everything in practice that you're going to do in the game, right? Because you want it to be the same experience, right? You want it to be the same thing. So for him, it's the same, right? He wants to be in midseason form. He's ready to. He's not going to show his players like, I'm treating this Canada tour as a little vacation. Not at all. He's business, right? Mm-hmm. But I saw the McGill coach today getting animated a few times too. He was into it.
Actually, all the opposing coaches, McGill and Ryerson and U of T, I noticed all 3 of them, they were getting animated not so much towards the ref, but towards their own players, because I guess they had instructed them in practice, this is what we want to do, and maybe they weren't sticking to the game plan. Or it's hard to stick to the game plan when you're playing against Duke.
It's very hard. Well, I mean, I don't want to get into like the X and O's of the game because it's like, it's kind of ridiculous because you knew each game was going to be a blowout and they all were. And today was even a bigger blowout. Even the fact that McGill was actually leading at for most of the first quarter, McGill was leading, right? But in the end, like in these type of games, and it's the same thing against Ryerson and same thing against U of T and McGill. The athleticism of the players is what shines through. That's what makes the big difference. Like McGill doesn't have a player that can physically match up with Zion Williamson. There might not be a player in all of NCAA basketball USA colleges that can match up with Zion Williamson in terms of his physical attributes, the jumping and the massive size that he is, and like he's a freak, right? And RJ Barrett too, and like it's like at a certain point you just can't, like they get every rebound and you get every putback, and there's more block shots and then more steals, and it's not like one play that changes the game. It's just many plays, and then before you look up, they're winning by 30.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, I asked Coach K after the third game. I said, the scores have been getting higher and higher for all your games on this tour. Is that a function of, the opponents that you're playing, the style that they play, or is it a function of the fact that you've got to play together now for 3 consecutive games and guys are starting to get to know each other?
Mm-hmm.
So let's listen to what he had to say.
Okay.
The 3 games, the scores progressed higher and higher the 3 games. Is that a function of the style of the opponents you're playing, or the fact that you guys got to play together for 3 games?
Yeah, I don't know. It did go up. We hit our free throws in the second half. We haven't been hitting free throws the whole 3 games, and we got a little bit more transition in this game than we did in the other 2. And I think we got better. I think Ryerson's really good, but they were very athletic and older, and it took us more than a half to kind of adjust. In Toronto, they play a little bit slower. They try to make some passes, and they run with no low post, and that took a little bit more time off the clock. And so, I don't know. Our walk-ons hit a couple shots tonight, stuff like that. So, but we can score a lot of points. Because we can, and so I think we just got better though. Our best half was that second half. And like I thought they were the equal of us in that first half as far as how well they played, and we just happened to have a double-digit lead, but we weren't playing necessarily better than they were. And we just scored more than they did.
It's interesting that he really didn't actually know for sure. Like, he didn't have a really definitive answer for you, but, I mean...
I think it was a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as, like, observer of all the 3 games, like, how do you rate, like, the events, like, how the event was put on in Montreal as opposed to, like, the Toronto games?
I thought everything was great. I mean, there was only one game in Montreal, but the Montreal venue holds 10,000 people. The Toronto venue only holds 5,400 people. Mm-hmm. So total number of people saw the same. There was same total number of people. But I thought both cities put on a good show. Right. Like everything looked professional. The court, all decked out in Duke.
The court really looked amazing today.
Yeah. And Duke brought their mascot, and in the pregame they showed a highlight montage of past Duke highlights, and there's tons to choose from, of course.
It was so good. That started playing, and my son was like, "Are you watching this?" I'm like, "Oh, I can't get my eyes off of it." I was like, I want to find it somewhere. I don't know if it's available somewhere, but.
And that's why I wanted you to come early, because if you didn't come early to the game, that's what you would have missed. I know some of our friends that went to the game didn't get there in time to see that. They had some parking challenges or whatever it may be, but that was almost better than the game itself.
Well, I mean, Zion put on a show, like in the warm-ups with the dunks, and Barrett tried a few tricky dunks in the warm-ups that didn't succeed, and Williamson was just throwing them down. And then in the game, my God, I was trying to think of like a player that Duke's ever had that can compare to this guy physically. Like, we've never had anybody like this. He's a high flyer who's 6'7", 285 pounds.
So in all the press conferences that I attended throughout the week, a lot of reporters asked Coach K a similar question. Can you compare RJ Barrett to a past player you had, or Zion Williamson to a past player you had? And before they could even finish asking the question, every time Coach K would say, I'm not comparing any of these guys to any of the past guys. I'm not talking about any of the past guys. I'm not ranking anybody. These guys are they're new guys. They're different guys. I don't want to put them into a specific category or typecast them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to figure out what they can do, and then I need to adjust as a coach to them, not them adjusting to me.
That's so awesome. On the way back from the game in the parking lot, I was walking with Matthew. You were still inside getting your interviews. One of the guys that was walking near us, another fan, it was like, oh, Zion Williamson, he's so amazing, he's so amazing. And his friend said, yeah, he's going to be the next Charles Barkley. And then I looked at Matthew, I'm like, what do you think about that? The next Charles Barkley? And he's like, this is brilliant. He blew me away, my son, today. He's like, no, he's not the next Charles Barkley. He's the first Zion Williamson.
I like that quote.
I was like, wow, Matthew, bringing it.
Maybe he went to media training with Coach K.
It was so good. Like, but it's true, right? Like,
yeah.
He's honestly, like, now the term they like to use, you hear it all the time, he's the unicorn. Meaning it's like, there's only one ever like him, you know? But like...
I don't like that nickname at
me
all.
too, it's stupid. But as a Dookie, we never saw a guy like this.
No, I don't think we have. But I mean, Duke has had excellent recruiting classes in the past and not won the championship. So there's no guarantees.
No.
Just because Duke has 3 of the top 100 ESPN ranked players doesn't mean that they get an automatic ticket to the Final Four.
No, because you know what? There's often teams that have great prospects, but look at Villanova last year. Like, their point guard was a senior. It's literally boys versus men. You know, like RJ Barrett, how old is he? 18?
Yeah.
19?
Speaking of men,
you know,
there's a player on McGill, Alex Paquin.
Oh, he was great today.
He's 24 years old. He played 3 years in the NCAA, and he literally, no joke, scored half of McGill's points today.
Yeah. He led all scorers at the half, including all the Duke players, and I think he finished with 29 or whatever.
What's half of 58?
Yeah, there you go. That's it, 29.
So yes, he
was outstanding, but it just goes to show, right? He's 24. RJ Barrett's 18.
Right.
Zion Williamson's 18. Like, as good as they are, there's a lot of experience. There's a lot of basketball knowledge there, basketball IQ, just how to run a team. He's the point guard, you know? So, like, he impressed everybody in the stands. Everybody in the stands was impressed with that number 5 today.
And I spoke to him after the game, and I asked him why he transferred from a U.S. school to a Canadian school.
Well, he graduated, right?
He did graduate, yes. And so, we'll play a clip of what he said.
I graduated, and I wanted to play more basketball. I wasn't like a main option there, so I knew here I had an opportunity to go back and play professional after university. So that's why I wanted to come back and keep playing ball.
So your plan is when you're finished McGill, you're going to play professional?
Yeah. I'm trying to go professional overseas next year.
Okay. All right. Well, you had a great game, so
thank you.
Congratulations. Were you more amped up for this game because you're playing against an NCAA team and used to play in the NCAA? Mm-hmm. Did that have any added meaning for you, or?
I mean, I feel like I'm not used to it, but I've played those games where like I've played against Ben Simmons before, played against these guys. So, but I just wanted to go out there and show like what I could do, you know, like that I could play with Duke and that I could play with high major Division I players.
I think you scored half your team's points, so congratulations.
Thank you.
You were the only one in the room interviewing him, right?
There were no reporters in the McGill locker room.
When you walked in, they were like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah, I think they were all like in their regular clothes, and they were about to leave, and you know, it was hard to figure out who's who because they weren't in uniform.
Oh, but he has that beard.
His back was turned to me, so I didn't recognize him right away. But then I figured out who he was, and I think
so funny.
He seemed a little surprised that someone wanted to ask him a question.
It's so awesome. It's you. It's great. Exclusive. That's your first exclusive. Like the title of my description in the last episode was like,
"Fasten your seatbelts."
No, that was the title, but it was like in the little description. It's like it's the perfect storm of events. You know, a podcast where one guy's in Toronto and one guy's in Montreal, and then Duke comes to both cities. Like, and then we're both Duke fans. Like, it's just ridiculous. And then today, I mean, I don't want to get emotional because I might, but like when I walked into that arena today, and the Place Bell is a gorgeous arena. There's no history there. There's nothing to do with Place Bell. It's just whatever, right? I walked in there, and there was like 5,000 Duke t-shirts and jerseys today.
Yeah, you felt like it was a Duke home game.
Yeah, I walked in there and I sat down and I had Duke people all around me. People like me all around me. including my son, who I've kind of indoctrinated into becoming a Dookie, even though he doesn't want to be. I don't know. He's on the fence, I guess. But there was Dookies everywhere. And I said to you, you sat down in front of me. It was during the pregame. I'm like, Cubby, we're at home. Like, these are our people. Like, we're with our own kind, Like, this is it, We've reached the pinnacle, Like, this, I felt like so, like, in such a good place. I know it sounds weird, but, like, we were where we were supposed to be, today.
I've never heard you be so...
I was so passionate about it today.
Emotional and so deep.
Because when I was looking around, I was like, these are all people from Montreal here. Not all. Because there was clearly many people that came from North Carolina. Duke people.
Well, there were American license plates in the parking lot.
But I mean, the vast majority of the people in the arena today are from Montreal. And French speaking, And they were wearing Duke shirts. I saw Duke shirts. I saw a Leitner jersey. I saw a Hurley jersey. Like Battier and like it was just great. It was just great to be there. The whole experience was like quite wonderful. I had such a great time, and then they put on a great show with all these crazy highlight dunks.
It also helped that the Place Belle, the primary colors there are blue.
Yeah.
So all the seats are blue.
Yeah.
And so it really felt like a home game for Duke.
It doesn't make sense at all that Duke is the home team for all the games in this series. It's like, I don't understand it.
I know that they are. I don't know why they are. I'm sure it was part of the agreement that, they wanted to be the home team. I don't know that it makes a difference.
But it was so weird because you're the one that pointed out, like, they introduced the McGill players and then they introduced the Duke players, which is what they do if you're the home team. But then when they played the national anthem, they played the Star Spangled Banner first and then O Canada second, which is the wrong way. But obviously they have to do that because the home team wasn't really the home team.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
I don't know if it was jersey selection or what other advantage a home team gets, but it seemed like strange. But whatever, that's just us picking on nonsense. So do you have any more thoughts about like the game, the series? Like, we've never talked about college basketball in August.
No, but one thing, not so much about these three games in particular, but you were saying how you felt at home when you walked into the arena, walked into the building. We've seen Duke play before, but we've always seen them at a neutral court.
Right.
And oftentimes there's a lot of Duke haters at those games.
Is there ever?
So you and I have never had the benefit of seeing a game in Cameron Indoor Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So if you thought you felt at home with this, imagine if we actually got to go to Cameron Indoor one time. That would be the pinnacle.
I think that's the next step, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rob's been to a game there, right?
Rob has been to a game at Cameron and also Chapel Hill. But all in all, the week was, of course, phenomenal because I got to go to 3 games. I got to go to a press conference. I was literally, a few feet away from Coach K all week long. And I got to know the players because I spoke to all the players on Duke after each of the games. Mm-hmm. And so now, normally, when a new Duke season starts, it takes me a while to get to know the players just because, you don't get to see them on television that much until maybe January or something like that.
November was the first time last year when I saw them on ESPN.
Right. Normally, you don't get to see much of them until the NFL season's over, until after the Super Bowl. But now I actually feel like I know these guys, and I know, this guy's good at rebounding, and this guy's good at playing defense, and so on and so forth.
It's even harder lately in the one-and-done era because every year you have to learn a whole new team.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this season much more than last year because I feel like I got to, it was all the bench players that played today and all these 3 games, because there's a lot of injuries, and so everybody got a chance to play. So it was quite interesting, to see Joey Baker and Goldwire. And I told you the story about Goldwire from last year. I was like, what happened to this guy? I thought he was supposed to be good. He hit a 3-1 game, and I thought he was going to be our big sharpshooter, and then he never played again.
Actually, I got a few good quotes from Jack White, who's Australian, so maybe we'll play some of those quotes for our listeners.
It's just been awesome to see, each guy kind of grow during this trip and just become more confident and, just play better and better each game.
Major League Baseball.
Let's transition to another sport. There's something that I really wanted to talk about all week. I know it's a little bit of old news, but I just wanted to talk to you about it.
Okay.
Obviously, you saw Ronald Acuna Jr. on the Braves get hit in the back, or actually on his elbow. By what's the pitcher on the Marlins?
Jose Urena.
Yeah. And I saw the highlights, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And then, of course, all the takes came out on all the talk shows all week, and they totally agree with what I'm thinking. But I still just want to articulate, how stupid Major League Baseball is in this situation. It's just ridiculous. The guy's homered in 5 straight games, right?
Right.
He steps up to the plate for his first at-bat of the next game, and without a doubt in my mind, they threw at him intentionally.
On the first pitch.
On the first pitch. But, like, sometimes you're like, oh, it got away from him. First of all, the Marlins didn't try to deny it. You never heard a Marlins guy saying, oh, he likes to pitch inside and it got away from him. Like, you know, none of that. It was clear as day to anybody watching that game that he threw at him intentionally.
I think it was Jose Ureña's fastest pitch that he's thrown all season.
I read that. It was his fastest pitch. Or no, not the fastest pitch, but in the fastest, like, top 2% of pitches or something like that, you know? I mean, it's just absurd. And, like, okay, that happens. Players get hit all the time. But then Major League Baseball goes and suspends this guy for 6 games. Now, I'd love to know how Rob Manfred and the people at Major League Baseball arrived at 6 games. Because Ureña pitched today. So basically, he took his normal day and his normal day to start his next start, and they pushed it back one day and then he started. So he got a day off, basically. It wasn't a suspension. He got a day off. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And the thing that bothered me the most is I saw people that are supposedly baseball people, like Keith Hernandez and other people on ESPN and on different talk shows, I can't remember the name, but I know Keith Hernandez for sure, that are defending the pitcher, saying it's part of baseball, pitching inside is part of baseball. Whatever happened to trying to get the guy out instead of hitting him? Oh my God, we can't get him out. Well, let's hit him.
Yeah, I mean, this has been bothering me for a while now. I've said to you that if a pitcher hits a batter, he should be ejected immediately. And luckily, the umpires were smart and they did eject him right away.
Because it was so obvious that it was intentional. It was like that was the only thing that's clear about this whole thing is that hitting him was intentional.
In the past, the umpires would give a warning to both teams.
Oh, that's the worst.
Which doesn't help anything. It makes it worse.
The warning's worse because what happens is that guy stays in the game. Everybody gets a warning.
And then the opposing
pitcher, maybe unintentionally, hits a guy, and then everybody gets thrown out.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
So, I mean, I heard what you said about Keith Hernandez, and if you talk to anyone from Hernandez's era or older, they'll all say to you, yeah, it's part of the game, it's one of those unwritten rules. But no, I mean, it bothers me so much that a player will hit a home run, and in the same game, the next time he comes up to bat,
they throw at him.
Or a player will hit a home run, and the next batter, who didn't even do anything, he gets hit. I mean, the object is not to hit the person. The object is to try to get him out. And if he did his job and hit a home run, why are you punishing him by hitting him? He did what he's supposed to do.
Why can't you do your job and get the next guy out?
Right. And it just so happens there are some good players that you can't get them out because they're really good.
Yeah.
But that's, so what? Too bad.
I know. It's really... You know what? If you wanted to send him a message, like I hear these people saying, well, pitching inside, he's allowed to pitch inside. He didn't pitch inside. He threw at him. He threw right at him. You know? You can pitch inside. I don't mind. Let him pitch inside. You know, brush him back. That's all. To me, that's part of baseball. The art of pitching inside, brush backs, whatever. This was right at him. Like it's absurd. And the 6-game suspension is just so stupid. Like, if Major League Baseball really, if this reminded me of, it's gonna sound weird, but we had a conversation about Phil Mickelson a few weeks ago. When he did his mini golf move and he hit the ball, he hit the ball while it was still going, right? And you were like, well, and people were saying he should be suspended or withdrawn, and you're like, well, there is a rule that says if you do this, you get a 2-stroke penalty, and the rule was applied. The proper rule was applied. So going back, I know it sounds weird. I'm going back to baseball now, but they gave a 6-game suspension. So in the mind of Major League Baseball, there was something wrong that was done. He did something that warranted a suspension.
Right.
Right? But clearly, like, they don't actually care because he didn't miss any time, you know? Like, what if Acuna got hit on the elbow and his elbow was shattered? I wonder if this suspension would have been different.
Right. Well, someone said that if Acuna has to miss, let's say, 30 days, that Ureña should have to miss at least 30 days as well.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, Major League Baseball, and I'm not defending them here, but the problem they have is anytime they hand down a suspension, the Players Association will always fight back and appeal and say, no, you can't suspend our guy for this amount of time. It's too long, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But what they neglect to mention is the player that got injured is also part of the Players Association.
Right.
So why are you not defending his rights?
Right, to be play in a safe environment and actually play by the rules of the game, and that doesn't make sense, right?
So the Players Association is so hypocritical.
Oh God, I don't know. Baseball's in a tough spot for this, but they really could have and should have sent a message by suspending him for 12 games, 15 games,
a month,
whatever it is. But at least make it more than having him not even miss a start.
So I'm glad you mentioned baseball, because I have a couple of baseball things I wanted to talk about, unless you had more to talk about.
No, I have nothing. Actually, I have nothing more. I have nothing more.
So do you remember, I don't know how many months ago, I think it was, I said to you that the Washington Nationals are a cursed organization.
You said that in our baseball preview this year, or when the playoffs were going on last year,
No, I don't think it was that long ago. It was probably during the baseball preview.
Yeah.
Because they've made the playoffs quite a number of times, and they've never won anything.
I mean, it won't be this year. They're not winning anything this year.
Well, so what I wanted to say is I have more evidence.
Oh.
And I mean, the reason they're a cursed organization, first of all, when they were in Montreal, they never won anything. Mm-hmm. And then the way they left Montreal and went to Washington was all Loria sold the team to Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball didn't put any money into it and didn't try to improve the team until, of course, fans stopped going to games. And then Major League Baseball said, well, since you fans don't care about the team, we're gonna take it away from you.
Yeah.
So the Washington is getting what they deserve. They're getting damaged goods.
Yeah.
They're getting a cursed franchise. And here's more evidence.
I love it.
In the last week, twice, actually back-to-back nights, Sunday night and Monday night, the Nationals had leads in the 9th inning of games. But let's talk about Sunday, because Max Scherzer pitched an amazing game.
Yeah.
7 innings. He gave up no runs. I don't know how many guys he struck out. And then they went to the bullpen, which they should never do, especially when Scherzer's on the mound.
No, but Washington's bullpen has been terrible since day one.
Right. And whoever they brought in the 8th actually did the job. But then fast forward to the 9th inning, the Nationals have a 3-0 lead. And they bring in, I believe it was Ryan Madson, because their top closer's injured and their backup closer's injured. And so I was actually watching this live, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The Nationals had brought in defensive replacements at second base and third base to play the 9th inning with a 3-0 lead. First batter in the inning hits a weak ground ball to the second baseman, Wilmer Defoe. He has to run in to charge it, and he would have had to make an amazing play, and he didn't make the play. So the runner's safe. Next batter gets out. Okay, 1 out. Next batter, Madson hits him. First and second, 1 out. Next batter gets out. Okay, 2 outs, no problem,
They
right?
can still get out of this.
We're getting out of this. Next batter, he hits another batter. The bases are now loaded. So who's up? It's David Bote, not David Bowie. David Bote, B-O-T-E.
Yeah.
And the count goes to 2-2, I think. So 2 strikes, 2 outs, bases loaded, 3-0 lead. Bote hits a grand slam.
Yeah, I love it.
If this had happened to the Expos, and I could actually envision this happening to the Expos back in the day, that is a backbreaker of epic proportions.
Yeah, you don't come back from that.
You don't come back from
Well,
that.
I mean, their season's already going so badly, Washington. They're already struggling just to kind of keep up with the Braves and the Phillies, and they're trying to get back into it. The record's not horrible. It's just not good, right? And then this happens, and then,
Had they won that game, I think they would have been 4.5 games out of the playoff
they're
spot.
teetering, you
Right.
know, they're on the edge.
So then, fast forward to Monday, another game against St. Louis this time. I wasn't watching, so I don't have all the details. But again, they had a lead in the 9th.
And they blew it.
And again, there was a walk-off homer, I think, to lose the game. So if the first backbreaker on Sunday wasn't enough, Monday, sure enough, surely did them in.
It's funny, though, that in our baseball preview, go ahead.
No, I just don't think... I mean, they might make the playoffs.
No, they
But
won't.
they're not going to do anything, even if they do make the playoffs.
No, this is going to be the end of the Nationals as we know it. In that, they've been, for the last, 5 to 7 years, basically winning the division all the time? More or less? 5 years? They're
more than that.
Yeah.
More than that, I
But
think.
they've been the class of the NL East for a while. The Mets had 1 year they were really good and whatever. But, they've been the dominant team in the NL East for quite a while. And Bryce Harper, I don't know what's going to happen to him, if he's going to stay or he's going to go. But it seems that, the window that they had might be finishing. Like the Nationals. This might be it.
Well, they did place, if you want to make trades now this month, you have to put your players on waivers.
Yeah.
And they did place Bryce Harper and Daniel Murphy on waivers.
Those kind of moves usually happen because they're trying to see if anyone's interested.
Right.
And then as soon as someone says yeah, then they revoke the waivers
right,
and
exactly.
they try to do something.
Like I think every player in the majors gets put on waivers in the month of
There's
August.
There's a lot more
so
than you know.
It doesn't mean that there's something's going to happen, but it's just interesting that it did happen. So sticking with baseball, changing the subject though, I went to a game about 10 days ago. And I don't go to that many games anymore. But there were two things that I noticed at the game that you wouldn't notice unless you were at a game that I was completely floored by.
Really?
Yes. Like, I didn't understand this at all. Firstly, I know that between innings, there is a clock. I believe it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds that the team has to get on the field and take their warm-ups and start the inning.
In Rogers, what is the name of the stadium in Toronto?
Rogers Center.
Is the clock visible?
Yeah, it's there. Yeah. But what I didn't know is between every batter, there is another clock, which is 30 seconds.
Oh.
And both the batter and the pitcher have to be ready within that 30-second.
For each
not each pitch, in between each batter.
Right, okay.
And so if the pitcher isn't ready and the clock hits 0, the umpire can give a warning. And if the pitcher does it again, the umpire can start calling balls even before a pitch is thrown.
I haven't heard of that even happening.
See, hold on. And by the same token, if the batter isn't ready, the umpire can give a warning. And if the same batter does it again,
he can give a strike.
He can start calling strikes. And I knew that they were talking about putting this rule in, but I didn't know that they actually implemented it.
I feel like the rule is in, but it might not be enforced because you never see it happening.
Well, the thing is, if you're watching on television, you wouldn't notice the clock.
Yeah, you don't know.
But I was there and I noticed, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize they were actually using this clock.
This should be interesting in the playoffs where the games are 5 hours long.
Especially if the Red Sox are playing the Yankees.
Oh, Jesus.
The other thing that I noticed at this game that I was, not so much stunned, but I didn't know what it was. On the video board, you see all kinds of stats during the game. Hits, runs, errors, left on base, strikeouts, how the player did in his previous at-bat, all kinds of stuff. So there was one thing on the video board that I've never seen before, and I didn't know what it was, and I had to Google it.
What was it?
It's
one of those advanced stats?
I'll tell you in a sec.
It's BABIP or
No.
ERA plus?
I've heard of all of those.
Yeah.
This was something I've never heard of. It's not a stat for a player.
Yeah.
It's like in the line score where you see all the innings.
Yeah.
Then you see runs, hits, errors, left on base. Uh-huh. And then there was this. And it said MV. I'm like, what is MV?
What is it?
Like, I'm racking my brain.
MV?
The people I was with at the game,
know.
They had no clue what MV was. And I know baseball.
Well, yeah. If you don't know, who knows?
Do you know what MV is?
It's in that line score?
Yeah. And
what was the number?
There's a number for each team.
What was the number?
One team at the time had 6, and the other team at that time had 4.
MV? I don't know.
And funny enough, it was very similar. Like, the numbers were similar to how many were left on base.
Okay.
But it wasn't left on base because that was a different column.
Yeah.
I Googled it.
Yeah.
Mound visits. Because now you're only allowed a certain number of mound visits per game.
It's like showing timeouts in football.
And so also we waited to see when there was another mound visit if the number would change. And sure enough it did, but it went down. So what they do is it counts down.
It's like your demerits on your license.
Correct.
Oh no, maybe the demerits is the other way around. But anyway.
Yeah.
But
so
I know
nothing to do with
licenses.
So anyway, 2 things that I never noticed before.
Mound visits.
Yeah.
You live and learn.
Yeah.
Just when you think you know everything about baseball. So before we sign off, I want to remind everyone that to make sure you never miss an episode of the Skip and Josh podcast, you have to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music, or the podcast app of your choice. You're still using Overcast, right?
I'm still using Overcast.
I still love Overcast. And of course, the big news we mentioned last week, we're now on iHeartRadio. If you listen to Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you via email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, Twitter @skipandjosh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. And as always, skipandjosh.com has all the links on how to subscribe. You told me you had some listener mail.
So after our last episode, I got a text message from one of our listeners, Derek.
Oh, Derek, he's
No, but listen to this.
number one.
So it was the episode where we talked about Coach K.
Right.
It seems like we talk about Coach K every
Well,
episode.
no,
lately.
this episode and last.
So I'll just read you the entire text message.
Oh boy, this is long.
It's not
Derek-
that long, but
yeah.
but bear with me. Just finished the podcast. Great stuff on Coach K. Now to my next point. Buko is Disco Biscuit's son? With 3 question marks. Are you kidding me? 2 question marks. A, I had no idea. B, that explains quite a bit. C, holy crap, is this league ever a joke?
Oh my god. So Derek was irate about the lopsided trade in your fantasy baseball,
He was, just as irate as I was.
but he didn't know that actually the trade was between father and son.
I thought he knew. You
Of course,
see,
it makes
I knew that it was between father and
It
son.
makes it worse.
But yes, but I thought he knew. I thought everyone in the league knew.
So this morning we had breakfast together,
Yes.
and then you said, I'm watching a new show on Netflix. And I said, which one? And then you said, I can't tell you. We have to save it for the show. Now, you texted my wife across the table to tell her what the show was. And now I've been waiting for 6 hours for you to tell me what the show is.
So just so you know, it's not a new show. It's new to me.
Okay.
Breaking Bad.
That's what I thought it was. So, are you enjoying it?
I'm loving it. I actually, season 1 was short. It was only
Yeah.
like 7 episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm already done season 1.
Yeah.
So now I'm on season 2, episode, I don't know, 2 or 3.
It gets better as it goes. It like one time you get to 3, 4, 5, it's really, really like it hits its stride.
I
you
can't
know?
imagine it getting better.
No, it gets better. Yeah,
Okay.
It gets really better. Anyways, that's good. I'm happy you're watching it. So when you're finished watching it, we can do a Breaking Bad episode, but I'll have to go back and watch it. I guess it's
Right.
been a while.
Right.
Yeah. All right. It's great talking to you. I'm glad you were able to come over. Now let's go eat some barbecue.
Beautiful. Love it.
The Skip and Josh podcast is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.